Welcome to Feeling Fit with Carrie. Today we're going to talk about some basic things for yoga. So whether you've been practicing a long time and you want to maybe just get some of the finer details that you feel like you're missing, or it's your first day and you're saying, Carrie, I don't feel comfortable going to a class because I don't know what to do. We're going to talk about that and we're going to make everyone feel comfortable. So a couple things you need to know about yoga. First of all, it is not competitive. You don't have to do the postures exactly like the person next to you. It's a practice. It's always a progression. We're always working, we're always changing, we're always growing. Some days we have our balance, some days we don't. It's okay. There's no need to feel like you have to get it right. It doesn't matter. We want to just feel comfortable in ourselves. Yoga is about connecting that mind and body. We want to feel comfortable and connected in our body. So we can't do that if we're worried about other people's bodies. So don't look at your neighbor. Don't even worry about me and how I'm doing it. My body is different than yours. So I give all kinds of different options. So take the option that works for you. Don't feel like you have to do what my body is demonstrating in that moment. Also, people ask me, do I need shoes? Do I need socks? What should I wear? Doesn't matter. Wear something comfortable. I prefer something fitted. If you have baggy clothes, they may be hanging off of you. It makes it hard to see yourself in the mirror. You can't always see where your hips are placed, where things are, and that can cause injury if they're in the wrong place. But if you're not comfortable and you'd rather have some sweats on, that's okay. Just make sure it's not getting in your way. As far as footwear, I like bare feet. That's my preference. Just make sure you're not gonna slip. So if you want socks and shoes, that's okay. Yoga mat is wonderful. If you don't have one, that's okay as well. I have two today because I'm gonna be facing you and I'm gonna be turning to the side a little bit. So generally, if you have a mat, you just need one. Don't be confused by my two mats. So first we're gonna start out just by standing up. So here's something we don't think about. We stand on our feet all the time, but we often don't stand correctly. We don't stand right over our center, which is the center of our body. So I want you to think about each foot like a tripod. So you have that point underneath the ball of your foot, right underneath your big toe, underneath your pinky toe, and underneath your heel. And I want you to have equal weight on all three places, and you should be able to wiggle your toes. So kind of take a moment there, maybe rocking back and forth. You can kind of soften those knees a little, bouncing up and down very gently. Just kind of finding that place, making sure those feet are nice and parallel, hips width apart. Then we want to start to stack everything up. So you want to think about your head resting right over your shoulders right over your rib cage, over your hips, over your knees, over your ankles. So when you turn to the side, you want to have a nice straight line. For whatever reason, ladies, we all know, when somebody tells us to stand up straight, what do? We stick the girls out. So we want to kind of tuck them under. We don't want to curl, but we want to have a nice straight back. Our abs are engaged and lifting, but our ribs are closed. So that just means that we're not arching the spine, sticking the chest forward. We don't want that. We don't want to have our hips going back or front. So that's something that we don't often think about when we're standing up. So that's a good thing to start out with. So when you have a class that starts in a standing posture, which is just called mountain, we're just standing, so I'm a CPE. We're just standing and resting here. This is always a good place to start. Some classes will start on the floor. Some of my classes start that way. This is also a fine place to be. So what we're gonna start out is we're gonna inhale up, put our hands together, and we're just gonna lean to one side. So now we're gonna take that straight line and just bend it over a little bit. And then bring ourselves back to center to the other side. So you can do that a few times as you continue to warm up. Those are some nice things to do. Just stretching through the side, very gentle. Another thing I like to do is I will have my students inhaling up, placing that hand on the head. And when you exhale, just let gravity very gently pull that head down. We're not forcing it. I'm just using the weight of my hand to release through my neck here. This shoulder is just rolling down and back. And release. Let's try the other side. Big inhale up and exhale. Gentle pressure again. We never ever want to put any undue strain on our neck. We generally carry a lot of tension there, so sometimes it's easy to injure that part of our body because it's already tense. It's already tight. So we want to try to release it as much as possible, but also be very careful with it. And release back to center. Again, feel free to stop the video at any point in these postures if you want to do them a few more times. Also, another thing I tell my students, we spend a lot of our lives over. We're here, we're on the phone, we're on the computer, we're holding our kids. So anything to open through here and reverse that is wonderful. So what we're gonna do is put our hands out like a goalpost. We're gonna inhale and just open through the chest, squeezing those shoulder blades together. And then as you exhale, round forward. So I'm gonna turn sideways so you can see what that looks like in my back. So we're gonna inhale, open up, and exhale, round forward. Again, inhale, open up, maybe a little tiny back bend this time. Exhale, come forward. Very good. Again, feel free to do that a few more times as you're warming up. I'm gonna move right along into our vinyasa. Vinyasa means flow. It's just a movement through the postures. That's the type of yoga that I like to teach, but I will be doing videos of all kinds of different things. So there will be times where we're moving and flowing and times when we're just sitting still in some of the positions. So we're gonna start with our sunrise salutation and work our way through our warrior posture. So the first thing you're gonna do is take a big inhale up and exhale all the way down, swan dive. You wanna come down with a flat back. Your head goes down last. And then you're gonna come up halfway with a nice flat back here and fold. So I'm gonna turn sideways and show that again so you can see what's going on with my back here. So this is something we don't talk about a lot in class. So we're gonna inhale up, exhale. You're gonna see me come all the way down. My head peels down last, dropping it, releasing it, coming up halfway. You can rest those hands on the shins, on the knees. Some people just like to hang them down here, whatever feels nice. And then folding all the way over again. Now we're gonna plant those hands. You're gonna hear me say jump or step. So you can either jump or you can walk your feet back. And we're gonna come to plank, high push-up position. So you wanna think about your back is nice and flat, your abs are in tight. You always have that option to come down to the knees. So even if your instructor doesn't tell you that, you always have that option. Feel free to take it at any time. You're gonna chaturanga. My elbows stay in by my ribs. I lower down and then I scoop up, lifting my face into an up dog. Now, you have a lot of options here. This is a full up dog. You can rest your thighs down on the mat. You can come a little lower, even into a baby cobra. Sometimes back extensions are not great for people. It's okay to pick the progression of that posture. You may be way down here. You may be way up here. It doesn't matter. Then we're gonna tuck our toes, lift our hips, and come into a downward facing dog. Down dog is another rest posture. You'll be here a lot. It's wonderful. It's a good place to be sometimes when you just have to stop and think about what happens next. So your back is flat, you're pushing your chest down, your hips are high and back, and you're reaching those heels for the floor. You should feel a nice little stretch all up the back of your legs here. If your heels don't touch the floor, that's all right. It's perfectly fine. We're gonna lift one leg high into three-legged dog. We're gonna bring it through in between our hands into a lunge, and then this back heel comes down into the side. See how I brought it to the side? I'm gonna lift up into my warrior one. So from the side, this is what warrior one looks like. I'm gonna turn forward, and we wanna think about a couple of things. Making sure that our knee goes right over our foot, straight forward. Don't let it start to go to the side. Our feet tend to pronate or supinate, which just means they roll. So that throws the whole thing out of alignment. That's how you injure your hips and your knees and your ankles. We want it to go forward. So my left knee is going right over my left foot. My right hip is gonna reach forward, squaring off. My back leg is straight, there's a good bend here. And my arms are just up high. Shoulders are down and back. Now, sometimes your teacher may add in a twist. Twists are great for digestion, for getting the toxins out of the body. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna come forward, hands at heart center, and opposite elbow to knee. Now, you always have the option of having this hand down on a block or the floor if you need, but what we wanna do is try to get that elbow on the outside of that knee and twist in our center, getting our hands right at our heart center. So what we want to think about here is making sure we're twisting, anytime you're twisting, in your center, which is right here. Not doing funny things in our hips. Our hips stay, we're moving in our core. Sometimes that twist is a little much for people. Ladies, when you're pregnant, that's the first thing to go. It was for me, so I would just hold here, or you can stay up in your regular warrior one. That's always an option. Moving to warrior two, and you can get into warrior two a lot of different ways, but from warrior one, all I did was just open up, yeah? So you can also, sometimes the instructor may have you go through a vinyasa again. They may have you just inhale and step back. So when you get to warrior two, you may have a little bobble like that, that's okay. You're gonna look down. First thing I tell people, make sure you can see your first two toes inside of this knee. People tend to start to go like that. Also, this hip, make sure it's open. Your hips are headlights on a car. We want them squared off to one side of the room. If you got one headlight going one way, and one going that way, you're gonna crash the car. So we wanna think about lining everything up nice, squared off, nice and open for warrior two. Keeping a good bend in that knee. If it's a little much, come up. If you want more, calm down. When we reverse our warrior, we just lean up and back. We're always tempted to kind of straighten this knee to help our body go back. Fight that temptation. Keep that knee bent, lean with the upper body. Your gaze is ideally up at this top hand, but if that's too much, you can look forward or down. I like hand behind my back because it keeps my shoulder down, but you'll also see the arm down here, yeah? So this is fine for your reverse warrior. Then we're gonna come back to center, and we're gonna come forward and down into side angle. This is another one where you see a lot of options. The only thing we wanna really focus on is opening here and not falling forward. So you can rest this left hand on your knee. You can extend it, let it float above the mat, put it on a block, put it on the floor. If you wanna shoot for that bind, I'm gonna show it to you in a couple ways. Half bind, my top arm comes behind my back. Full bind, my other arm comes below this leg and behind. So I'm gonna turn around so you can see what that looks like from the back. So I've got this top arm back here, and then this one comes behind, and then I'm gonna try to get my fingers together. If you don't quite do that, you can hold a towel, or you can just hold onto your shirt. You wanna try to get this shoulder resting on your thigh here, this left shoulder, and then my right shoulder, my top shoulder opening up. Those are some different things to do in that side angle for warrior two. And again, your teacher will have you reverse, they'll have you come forward, they may have you come back to warrior one. So feel free to stop and work on these postures as long as you need, and remember that there are different ways that you may move into them. We'll do that in our flow videos. Today we're just working on the actual postures. So warrior three, that one's a little bit more advanced, but still very, very doable. So again, ways to get there. You can go from crescent, which is this lunge right here, and you just ground into that front leg and lift forward. So I'm gonna show it from the side so I can talk about a few things. So here, and losing your balance is perfectly normal. It happens to the best of us. So we wanna make our body like a capital T. Now, your arms can go in front of you here. They can be out here. They can be here. They can be here. They can really be wherever you want, even hands on hips, which is nice because you can now think about my left hip needs to face the floor, needs to be squared down. Again, headlights on the car. What happens in warrior three is people tend to go like this, and they cuff this hip out. You see how I have my hip now facing that way? See, I can't even hold it. It's gonna make you fall down. So you wanna square those hips off to the floor, just like they are in that lunge. Using that core to hold yourself up. So those are some things that you can think about when you're in those postures. So that's our warrior postures. We did just show crescent, I kind of glazed past it, but I'm gonna go back to it. So let's take a vinyasa together, go through our chaturanga, and we'll talk about crescent. So we inhale up, exhale, fold, inhale, half, exhale, fold. Very good, plant those hands. jump or step back to that plank. Remember we talked about toes or knees here. Either option is fine. We chaturanga, we lower down, up dog, down dog, and then we're going to lift our leg, three-legged dog, and bring it through in between those hands, just like warrior one, leaving the back heel up, we come up into crescent. Yes, again, I'm gonna turn sideways. Crescent is one of those that has many options. You can come right here to kneeling crescent, or you can be lifted, and you can be way up high, or you can get really low into it. I'm reaching my heel, my back heel, back and down, and I'm getting into this front hip. You can even take a little back bend right here. Be very careful with that balance. Yes? Now I'm gonna straighten out my knee. I'm gonna round forward. I'm gonna adjust my feet a little into pyramid. So I have two straight knees now, and I'm rounding over, looking at this front knee, even if your face is nowhere close to it. You can have your hands on a block. You can have them on your shins. You can even take them behind your back, like this, or like this, and round over. We want to try for two straight legs. Our toes are facing forward. This can be a little much on your knee. If you feel like you're locking out your knee or there's any tension, come up out of that posture. Reset, maybe soften it a little bit, but we don't want here. A lunge is not bad, it's just a different stretch. So when you're here, you want to feel it up the back of this front leg. When you're here, you're going to feel it in this leg, in your hip. So this and this are two different things. So we want to think about that. We'll take a few more minutes. Let's try a standing balance. Now I'll do some more videos on the more advanced standing balances. I'll work through a few more things with you guys, but once you work through your vinyasas, a lot of times they may have you do a standing balance. So we're gonna talk about tree. It's a very basic one. You always have the option to go and hold onto the wall, hold onto a bar, hold onto whatever. That's okay. Somebody said to me once, the postures are in all of us. It depends on the progression. So when you say, well, I can't do tree, I can't stand on one foot, I can't, never say I can't. Just say I'm working on that one, because you can. You can, you're working on your progression. So if your tree is nice and low, this is perfectly fine. If it's way up here, this is perfectly fine. Now let's talk about how I got into that. I'm gonna ground all my weight into one foot. I'm gonna pick up the other one, but I'm keeping my toes on the floor. I like arms, hands at heart center right here. There's about 1 million different arms that you can do. I'll show a few more as we go. Now you're gonna turn out this knee and touch this ankle to this foot. So making sure this knee is going to the side, this foot is going forward. Yes? Now, you're welcome to keep those toes on the floor. Maybe pick them up a little bit, keeping it nice and low. Feel free to step off your mat as well. Sometimes a squishy mat can seem a little bit more unstable than a hard floor. That's up to you. And then you can work on maybe bringing that foot up a little bit, maybe getting it way up high here. The only place we don't want it is on that kneecap. We get 2 knees in length and that's it. So we want to be really nice to them. So once you find your tree, wherever it is for you, find something still to look at. I like to find a clock or a speaker. Sometimes if they have those oscillating fans that is not oscillating, something in the room that isn't gonna move. Don't look at the teacher, don't look at a person. People will move, okay? Keeping your eyes up, keeping your core nice and tight. My shoulders are down. And again, hips, headlights on a car. We don't wanna start having them come up like that or sink down. We wanna keep them going the exact same way. So keeping this nice and level, using all of these muscles right here to hold you up. Everything else should be relaxed. I tell my students all the time, anytime you're balancing, look up. Your head is the heaviest part of your body. It will take you forward. Even your eyes. If you look down with your eyes, your head will follow and you will tip forward. If that happens, tuck and roll, you'll be all right. So, we work our tree as long as we want, and then you can touch it back in and down. shake it out, and work the other side. So feel free to stop the video here, working on your other side. A couple of closing thoughts. So yoga, again, I can't stress this enough. Do not feel like you have to compete. Don't feel like you have to do it perfect. Don't feel like, oh, I can't go to a yoga class. I'm not flexible. I'm not really thin. I'm not built for that. I'm a guy. I can't do that. All of that, get that out of your head. Stretching, flexibility, balance, all of those things are wonderful for everyone. Yogis are not flexible because they don't do yoga because they're flexible. They're flexible because they do yoga. I will get you there. I have taught so many people, especially men. Men tend to be not as flexible through their hips. They're built a little different than women. I'm sorry, guys, it's true. But that doesn't mean that men can't be flexible. That doesn't mean that men can't do the splits. I've seen some men pick up that foot and hike it up here. You can. You have to work on it a little differently than women do most of the time. So when I release some stretch videos, I will have some things to talk about, specifically opening the hips, working on splits, working on straddle, working on even just getting into this nice little squat. So in the future, we're gonna talk about a lot of things. So continue to join me. Feeling Fit with Carrie is our YouTube channel, and we're on Facebook. Send me comments, send me feedback, whatever you need, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.